This is the weekend edition of Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Look, Sean, obviously, if you're a regular listener to the podcast, you would know that the weekend show is a little bit different to the weekday show. Here we are nominating the biggest story of the week, the most remarkable story, the sleeper story, and our favourite story. It is a competitive environment.
Just a touch. We
never agree. And
well, mostly I'm right, you'll find. That's the issue.
That is not right. That's completely wrong. And we need an adjudicator to help us with that. And look, you know what? You have built this entire podcast now on a foundation of lies. So I hope you're happy.
That's a good promo for us.
That's right. Look, Adam Lang, our Fear and Greed colleague, is our impartial adjudicator who helps to kind of bring a bit of truth to the show. Adam, good morning.
Good morning to you both. Hello.
Adam, first of all, thank you very much for your for filling in for me last week. You did an admirable job, a sterling job, I would say.
Did you listen to any of them, Michael?
Leave that. Yeah, tumbleweeds.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear there for a second.
Did you notice, Adam, how collegiate it all went when it was you and I without Michael?
It was really enjoyable, and thanks to you, Sean, because you did all of the heavy lifting, and then it seemed to go really quickly. Like time passed really quickly.
So I wonder where the pain points are in this organisation. Adam? Me?
Are you just bitter because I said that you're building this podcast on a foundation of lies, Sean?
Yeah, I think so. It'll take me a while to get over that one.
Well, shall we jump into it?
Yeah.
We will look, obviously, for the biggest story of the week. I say that like it's something different. We start every week with the biggest story of the week. What was it for you?
For me, inflation in the US, interest rates, market collapses, equities and bonds. You just don't get many weeks like what we've just had. The trigger point was US core inflation coming in above expectations at more than 6%. Headline inflation came in at 9%. That means if you have your money under the bed at home or in a bank account not earning much interest, then you can buy 9% less than what you could do with the same money a year ago. Crazy. It triggered some of the biggest falls in global equity markets since early 2020. Tech stocks in particular were sold off hard. $60 billion was wiped off the ASX in just one day. And remember, interest rates are still rising. Europe will, in all likelihood, go into recession now. There's a 50-50 chance at best that the US will avoid recession. China's growth rate will be closer to 3% compared to the normal 7 to 8%. Australia, thanks to commodities, has a pretty good chance of avoiding a recession. Growth slowing, interest rates are rising. Who wants that? None of us. Massive story. Michael.
Well, it is. It is a massive story. But there was one story, Sean, that constantly this week pushed that off the front pages. And of course, I'm talking about the ongoing
business pages. Are we talking here?
Yes.
I know where you're going
I figure we can be a little bit dishonest if we want to, because you've set a precedent there. I'm talking obviously about the ongoing coverage of the death of Queen Elizabeth II. And yes, I know that technically she passed away last week, but what I'm really talking about now is the global reaction, the response, and then the preparations for her funeral on Monday UK time. Just the size, the scale of all of that shows that it is still the biggest story in the world. There was hardly a news bulletin this entire week led by anything other than the Queen. There's been a Queen story pretty much on the front page of every paper. Maybe the Financial Review is an exception, but there have still been days when it has made it on there, covering kind of every element of the reaction and the response to her death, following as her coffin made its way back from Scotland to London, and then as Charles was proclaimed king. Right now, we've got all the world leaders, including US President Joe Biden, converging on London for the funeral. Anthony Albanese flying there a couple of days ago with a group of regional leaders. Interestingly, Sean, as you pointed out through the week, there are a few leaders who aren't invited, which is interesting. Russia, Belarus, Myanmar, the leaders won't be there. And finally, of course, a special mention to the many thousands of people lining up in London to see the Queen lying in state. Huge queues. They're apparently up to like 30 hours. But to me, I would describe it as a real chance to witness history. So That's my biggest story of the week. Not just here, but the fact that this was and continues to be a global story dominating headlines. I think purely based on the definition of it, you can't get a bigger story this week. Adam, do you agree?
No. I'm sorry, Michael.
I was about to concede. I'll shut up. Go on, Adam, go on.
It was a beautifully told story, Michael, and a great credit to you. However, its impact on business does not supersede the US inflation and that delicate interest rate balance between managing inflation and growth in the economies around the world. So for me, Sean wins that one.
Since when does it have to be related to business?
Australia's most popular business podcast, Fear and Greed. That would have given you a hint, I think, Michael.
So can I just add too, though, I think within Michael's story, also King Charles III, I think he stood up remarkably through what must be one of the most excruciatingly tough periods in his life. So, yes, a massive story, but it's not business. Sean wins this one.
Okay. All right. No, look, that's fine. I accept. I accept.
A bit of malicious acceptance there, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel a bit like the New Zealand rugby team the other night, whom somehow pulled victory
from defeat
after a horrendous refereeing decision. Now, Adam, I'm not saying this is a horrendous refereeing decision. I'm just saying I feel like New Zealand at the moment.
Well, fair enough. I was in Melbourne on that night, Sean. I was not at the game. I was busy, but the atmosphere in the venue where the game was on was just shock that Australians had nearly done it. But they just couldn't on that refereeing decision. So thanks to Ace Radio and Radio 3MP, where I'm coming from their studios this morning.
The shock was probably similar to the shock that I am feeling right now.
Probably. You're Australia, I'm New Zealand.
Here comes redemption. Here comes redemption with the most remarkable story.
Go first, Michael.
Okay, so the most remarkable for me was the latest development in a very, very long, drawn-out, dramatic saga. Star Casino. This is a company, Star Entertainment, has copped an absolute hammering in the last 12 months, maybe 18 months or so, with extraordinary claims emerging at an inquiry in New South Wales. The Star hid money from the regulator, operated a secret gambling room, breached anti-money laundering measures, allegedly misled banks, may have evaded taxes, facilitated $900 million of banned gambling transactions. How long is that list? The saga continues. And Adam, I know that you appreciate the drama in a story, and you will never find a story with more drama than this one. With Star Entertainment found unfit to hold a casino license in New South Wales. What does that mean? It probably is going to be something similar to what happened to Crown Casino in Melbourne, enforceable undertakings. But it's the other recommendations that really got me. The expected changes to training and to reporting of breaches, kind of that all makes sense. This one, though, a suggestion that patrons should be limited to 3 hours of gambling in the casino before taking a break, and only 12 hours in a 24-hour period. 12 hours.
But what else would I do for the other 12 hours?
Exactly. Who needs sleep? I find that just remarkable. And it still goes on because there's another inquiry into the Star's operations and its Queensland properties on the Gold Coast and Brisbane. Remarkable because this story just keeps on giving. Sean, what have you got?
Can I just make a comment on that story, right? So a remarkable story, definitely. It'll be even more remarkable in the next week or two when the government comes out and says, yep, should cancel the license, but we're not going to. We trust them. There's going to be a few enforceable undertakings, just like happened to Crown. Yeah, I know they took $1 billion they shouldn't have. I know they didn't pay taxes, etc. But don't worry, they're going to change. Anyway, sorry, I digress.
Thank you for adding to my story, by the way.
No, that hasn't happened yet. You can have that when it happens.
Thank you. Very kind.
Look, my most remarkable story is a corporate one as well. It's tollway group Atlas Arteria's decision to buy a 2/3 majority interest in the Chicago Skyway. Now, as we discussed during the week, Chicago Skyway has to be the best named roadway ever. Better than the M5.
Yep.
I'd say.
Agreed.
Yeah. Anyway, it's worth around $2 billion and the other third of the tollway is owned by the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan. Atlas went to the market and raised more than $3 billion to pay for the purchase. All that's fine. Why is it remarkable? its biggest shareholder, IFM Investors, doesn't agree with the decision. In fact, it said, don't do it. In funds management, IFM Investors is a monster. It holds sway. Companies spend their lives trying to keep in good with their big shareholders, not Atlas. It gave the proverbial middle finger to its largest shareholder and bought the toll road. Whew, you don't see that every day or every week or every month. Remarkable.
Oh, well done. Adam.
And can I say, well sold too, Sean.
Oh,
yes,
thanks.
Excellent presentation. The drama. Michael wins this one. Star Casino is just... I'm dumbfounded. I really am about the whole thing. So for all the reasons you stated, Michael, it is a massive story. Billions involved, and I think the most remarkable. Sean, the Chicago Skyway is a ripper too, but sorry, Michael just gets this one.
It's okay because I actually think the Queen story was a ripper and he lost that one, so I'm reasonably happy.
The referee has rebalanced the game.
I've just Googled the Chicago Skyway, and really, it sounds a lot more impressive than it is.
It's just a road.
Yeah, you just have the Skyway. You have this image of things like soaring through the sky, kind of hundreds of meters in the air, and like
elegant design, the jets.
Asphalt on the ground.
Yeah, pretty much.
Concrete.
That's good marketing. That's what that is. Well played, Chicago Skyway. All right, we will be back in a moment with this sleeper story of the week. All right, we are looking now for the sleeper story of the week. So maybe a story that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, or that's going to become a bigger story further down the track, or kind of any other criteria that I need in order to make my story fit into the category. Because in the past few weeks, this is the category I really struggle with. I find it hard to find a story that fits into it, and Sean's just an expert at it. So I feel like I'm the underdog, so please take pity on me, Adam. Sean, you go first.
Softening up the judge. Mine's all about the big banks, and it's about adding tools to their apps, and the flavour of the month at the moment seems to be budgeting tools. In terms of bank apps, Commonwealth Bank ranks number one among customers, has done for several years. Westpac is closing the gap in second, according to research group Forrester. Westpac this week released new functionality that will help customers budget and track spending. Commonwealth Bank already lets customers set limits for spending in some categories and shows them monthly cash flows. ANZ also provides transaction and spending data. So, why a sleeper story? Because this isn't actually about Commonwealth Bank versus Westpac versus ANZ versus National Australia Bank. It's about the big four legacy banks all out against the new fintechs, which are offering incredible functionality and ease of banking. This is about the big four banks realising that if they don't lift their game, they're going to lose the race. Okay, not next year, probably not in 5 or 10 years, but over time, if they don't change and take on the fintechs, it'll be exactly the same as happened in digital cameras with Kodak. It'll be exactly the same what happened in media with Facebook and social media and that type of thing. This is about the new world of banking where legislation in recent years has allowed much easier transferring of information and data between organisations. Yeah, it's been going on for a while, but this week it really came to the fore when the banks started pushing their technological capabilities via their apps. I reckon they're scared. That's my sleeper story of the week. Michael.
Oh, good one. Look, I've also picked a good sleeper story. I know that I said before that I don't really have a good one. That was a little bit of a fib because I've got a cracker, and it is also related to the banks. And this may not come as a surprise to anybody who listened to the main Fear and Greed podcast through the week, because I did foreshadow that this was going to be my sleeper story. It is the warning from the banks that mandatory carbon emission and energy ratings will hit real estate values right across the country. So this came from Anna Bligh, who's probably best known to all of us as the former Queensland Premier, but now the boss of the Bankers Association, said that with the 43% reduction in emissions by 2030, a lot of the focus has obviously been on the manufacturing and transport sectors. But if we're going to meet those targets, households are going to need to be involved in the efforts as well. And that means measuring carbon emissions and providing energy ratings, much like they do in much of Europe. Anna Bly said that buyers will start attaching a higher value to lower emitting houses and then a lower value to higher emitting houses. It's then going to change the way banks structure their mortgage portfolio and how they lend to buyers. So basically, she's saying in the next couple of years, there could be major changes to the way we get a mortgage and the way that basically our houses are valued. Why is this a sleeper story? There are two reasons. Very short list. Two reasons why this is a sleeper story. Number one.
It'll still take you a long time to tell us, but go on.
That seems very rude. Can you dock him some points, please, Adam?
I would if I didn't agree.
Two reasons. Number one, it is a sleeper story because it has the potential to affect the values of every property in the country. Every single one. Right? There's a pause there for dramatic effect. Every single property. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, the second reason why this is a sleeper story, it is a sleeper story, Sean, because you said so yourself this week, and I just happened to get in first and reserve it. I would have thought with all your F45 gym sessions, you would have been more agile, more nimble, but nope. Good old Michael Thompson jumped in and got it.
I'm anything but agile at the moment. I can hardly move from those F45 sessions.
I know, and I took advantage of your lethargy. All right, Adam, what do you reckon?
God, this is really tough. So, Sean, big banks, they've often been accused of being full of tools, as we know, but adding tools to their apps to disrupt themselves.
Good line.
Thank you. Dad joke there. But disrupting themselves, I think that's massive. And they're doing it to protect, obviously, their industry and their share of revenue in it. So I think it is a massive story. When it comes to affecting loans, obviously, so many people need one. Not many of us just have the spare cash to go and buy a house. And having or mandating carbon emissions within those is huge. I think, Sean, though, that you win it narrowly.
Bit of shocked silence there.
Ha, 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 ha. No. I mean, I must say, I think they were both great stories. So
agreed.
I can't disagree with the judge on this one. I might have slightly disagreed on the Queen, but I can't disagree on this one, to be honest. Like either of them would have been a worthy winner, shall we say?
Well, shall I go? I agree. Just would have liked it to go my way. But anyway, look, favourite story of the week. Shall I go first on this one, Sean?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. I loved the story about Patagonia founder Yvon Chouinard giving away his company 50 years after he started it. He's 83, right? So he's making these kinds of decisions now about what he wants his legacy to be and the legacy of his company to be. And instead of selling the $3 billion outdoor apparel business, he's put it into a trust. It means the company's annual profit, around $100 million US, will be used to combat climate change. He said, and this is the quote, "Hopefully this will influence a new form of capitalism that doesn't end up with a few rich people and a bunch of poor people." Look, I don't actually know if that's right, but what it might do will potentially influence other super wealthy individuals to improve their philanthropy. And in doing this, in making this decision while he is still alive, he has essentially made his family one of the most philanthropic families in the United States. Apparently, Mr. Chouinard was included in the Forbes list of billionaires, and he hated it so much. He was so uncomfortable with that label of wealth that he started planning to actually give away his company. And he could have sold it, he could have listed it publicly, and it would have given him the cash to do the conservation work. But he didn't think it would still mean that he'd be able to prioritize the things that he wanted the company to be able to do internally, like focus on worker well-being. So instead, he set up the trust and the charity and gave the company away. I think it's really admirable. But how do you reckon the conversation would have gone with his two adult children who were there? Probably they're in their 40s and they may have been expecting a fairly kind of hefty inheritance. And he sat them down and goes, "Guys,
kids, have you paid off your mortgages yet?" Just wondering.
Because you're not going to get anything, but you know what? You will have a planet to live on. So there we go. Favorite story.
My favourite story is a little more serious, which is unusual for this particular podcast. It's all about the David and Goliath battle, where David is doing well. And we found out that this week. Russia has abandoned its main bastion in northeastern Ukraine after Ukrainian troops made a great advance into it. The fall of the town in the Kharkiv province was Moscow's worst defeat since its troops were forced back from the capital Kyiv back in March. Ukraine called it a turning point in the 6-month-old war, with thousands of Russian soldiers leaving behind ammunition stockpiles and equipment as they fled back to Russia. Now, Russian forces had used the area as a logistics base of one of their main campaigns, a month-long assault from the north on the adjacent Donbass region. We need to temper the excitement because the Washington Post did report whilst a great win, it probably won't change the current trajectory of the war. However, within Russia, there's been a number of nationalists who are vocal about their disquiet with what's going on with the war. For these people to actually be saying it out loud is quite incredible. So, it's my favourite story. Russia invaded Ukraine. No one's arguing that. Ukraine has fought incredibly hard. And just the fact that in this instance, David is making advances on Goliath, that's a reason for it to be my favourite story. Now, I apologise for being so serious in this podcast. Weekend edition is seldom serious, but this is a really, really important moment, I think.
Sean, it is a wonderful story. And if it was a worthiness element to the judging, I think this would have to win on that basis. I know the war's not over. And like you, I think we're going to applaud the David versus Goliath and Ukraine. Every centimetre it gets back against Russia is good. And so I really do love that. On the business element, I'm going to give this to Michael, though, on the Patagonia story. I think the whole story of Patagonia as a company and founder Yvon Chouinard is just remarkable. From coming up with, the spikes to be a mountain climber and not damaging the rock faces, he's a very unique individual, a real craftsman, and has created a fabulous company that's become very successful and giving it all away. It's just remarkable. So I think that's, Sean, I'd love to give it to you on Ukraine, but for me, Michael, you win favourite story of the week.
All right. Wonderful. That's 2-2, I believe. So it's going to come down to the points.
Yes, it is. So Sean, 85 points. Michael, oh dear. I'm so sorry, Michael. 80 points.
Oh, you made that sound like it was going to be so close.
I did too.
Well, 5 points is close, isn't it?
No, it's not. Close is 85 to 84 and a half. Sean, congratulations on a well-deserved, perhaps slightly surprising victory. And I look forward to the contest resuming next week. Thank you very much, Adam, for your judging today.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Michael.
All right, make sure you're following the podcast and join us online on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson. Have a great weekend.